I'm Justin Snyder.
And I'm Stephanie Greenwood Snyder.
We're just an average, everyday couple.
But over the years, we've seen the incredible importance of building community together.
We'll be talking with friends and experts about their stories and experiences to help us learn and grow.
We don't want to just survive through life.
We want to intentionally thrive.
This is The Intentional Thriver.
Welcome back to another episode of The Intentional Thriver. We have with us two very special people. I think we say that a lot, that the people are special. These two do foot the bill. They are special people. So,
and we're so excited
and we
about
are
it.
very excited to have that, because obviously we never say that either, that we're excited to have our guests. But we legitimately are. We are very happy to have Hansoo and Sarah Kim with us. How are you guys?
Doing good.
We're good.
Happy we're good. Fantastic.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we always like to start the show. Something we appreciate and admire about our guests. And after racking my brain, I finally came up with something for Hansoo. Sarah was easy. Hansoo, no, it was like 2 seconds. Sarah and Hansoo are incredibly generous people. That was like the first thing that came to my mind. Like, Sarah is a big part of helping with like the kids program and working with kids a lot. Mm-hmm. And that is exhausting. Like, we have the two kids and we're like, nope, that's we're done. Two and good. So,
and both of our kids went through a stage of like that screaming, like, mother is ripping me from your womb. Like, no, child, you are just going to people that want to hang out with you.
Like, what are you talking about?
When they go to
when they go to someone else,
and then they're fine, like, so fast. But it's just, I just have so much thankfulness for
so
Sarah's
much respect,
level-headedness, and kind words and encouragement,
and generosity of time and spirit and kindness.
And we've seen such growth with our kids, and they're just little
so
testimonies of.
Thank you for all you do for them. And then Hansoo as well. Hansoo and I met, it was about a year ago.
Yeah.
Now, wasn't it? Ish. And Hansoo and I are actually, this is going to weird some people out. We're actually part of a fight club, but not like the David Fincher movie kind.
Yeah, they can talk about it.
Like, I know Hansoo and I look like we're, these super intense, ripped boxers and fighters, but shocking surprise, we're not.
Yeah.
No, it's like an accountability group with a few of us guys that get together and we just, kind of talk about life and what's going on. And it's been, I don't know. I don't want to speak for you, Hansoo, but I think it's been pretty cool.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Yeah, we got great guys, and we have some, we share a lot of really cool things, and I've definitely grown just from the time that we got together. So it's been good.
Can you share a little bit about your backgrounds and who you guys are, and just, who are the Kims?
I actually grew up around here in Georgia to an awesome family. I grew up in the church. I always knew Jesus. I have two sisters. I'm the oldest, and went to Stanford University for school. I wanted to study church music there, which I did. I felt a calling in high school to pursue ministry and didn't super know what that looked like. And I've just been following that calling ever since. And that's what's led me to where I am now, but also what led me to Hansoo, because I moved all the way to Wisconsin at one point to work at a church up there. Really cool, awesome God story, all that stuff. But yeah, that's where I met Hansoo, and now I live back in Georgia. Moved here during COVID in late 2020, just to be close to family. It's like the worst and best time to move, I suppose. And now we're settled down here in Georgia. That's like the quick version for me.
Yeah. I was born in South Korea, grew up in New Jersey, went to school in New York, moved to Wisconsin, lived there for 8 years. I moved out there for a job. I'm fast forwarding like crazy through.
Yeah.
This is like the Sarah version,
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's how I ended up in Wisconsin. I got a job out there and I moved out there just out of the blue. Didn't know anybody, didn't
Wow.
have friends or family out there. Same thing with Sarah. She just had a calling. And again, we can expand more on that later. But
that's courageous.
That
That is a tough
is-
thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. We got engaged in Wisconsin.
We did.
Which is
That's
also
that's
wild.
a story in and of itself.
And
but
I spent a
that's-
summer in Wisconsin, and nothing against Wisconsin, but 8 years is a long time to be in Wisconsin.
man talking smack about Wisconsin.
There's nothing wrong. I mean, I was up in the.
I apologize to all our Wisconsin listeners.
There's a lot of snow up there, and I'm from the Northeast. There's a lot of snow in Wisconsin. Okay, I'm done.
Wisconsin's beautiful. All the lakes.
Oh, it's
and-
beautiful
Yeah.
during the summer.
Anyway, go ahead, Hansoo, before we lose all our Wisconsin listeners.
that's how I ended up in Wisconsin. Met Sarah a few years into living there. We actually met on a friend of ours who worked at the same church that Sarah worked at introduced us.
Yeah.
So that's how we met. We did it was a blind date for coffee.
Yeah.
That turned into dinner and all night. Not all night. a lot of-
Come
might be
on.
Ooh, do tell.
We've been together ever since. So we got
Yeah.
we got married. Like Sarah said, we
Wow.
moved here to Georgia to be closer to her family a few years ago. So that's a bit about me. I guess I didn't talk about what I do. I do healthcare, IT, consulting.
And I work in kids ministry at church.
That's right.
So you guys moved from Wisconsin in 2020, which again is a story in and of itself, and I'm sure in coming down to
Mhm.
Georgia, being close to family and things like that.
Yeah.
Finding a house. and
all of that journey.
that
But
market. Yeah.
specifically over the past 8-9 months to a year, you guys have had some pretty crazy stuff going on and happening in your lives. Can you talk a little bit about that, about like what's been going on with you for almost the past year, a little less than that?
Yeah. So I'll tell the story and let me know if I'm being too detailed, if I'm going too slowly. Then you just tell me.
We did a really quick overview on our entire lives, but we'll get super
The
detailed
last
Please
about
9
do.
months. That sounds good.
So yeah, last fall I had a routine eye exam. As you can see, I wear glasses, so every year go in and just do a normal checkup, make sure my prescription's still correct, and all that kind of stuff. So I went to that optometrist, had my eye exam, and as part of that, they, you take a light and they examine the back of your eyes. And the optometrist noted that I had some pretty severe swelling in my optic nerve. So she said, this is very concerning. We want you to go see a neuro-ophthalmologist as soon as possible. So they actually had me wait in the room while they were calling up a doctor that they
my.
knew to see if she could see me that day. She was able to squeeze me in the next day, so I got the appointment scheduled. Went to see the neuro-ophthalmologist. They did an exam and basically confirmed what the optometrist had found. And it kind of started off this whole month of tests and appointments to figure out what was going on. Ultimately, they found after an MRI that I had this really serious brain condition called hydrocephalus. So as soon as we had that diagnosis, we were referred to a neurosurgeon and we met with the surgeon, and the surgeon just told us all right, this is the surgery that I want you to have. So we went from knowing nothing was wrong. I didn't have any symptoms.
Wow.
I didn't have any inclination that anything was wrong.
Yeah.
To being told I would need brain surgery in
Wow.
a month.
Wow.
So that was a very crazy
Hmm.
fall.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had the surgery a week later. It was all very quick.
Very quick.
Fast forward. So I had the surgery, everything went great. I was recovering and I started to feel pretty sick for a few days. So I talked to my surgeon, and he said it might be normal for recovery, but we'll get you a CT scan. So I was so sick I couldn't get out of bed. Like that's how bad it was. But by the time I had my appointment to get my CT, I was feeling better. So I thought everything was fine. But we had the CT, and my surgeon called me back after he saw the images and said, "Hey, your swelling is back. We don't know why. We don't know what's happening. But if you're feeling fine, like that's great. But we're gonna like talk to your neuro-ophthalmologist and kind of like figure out what's next."
And the swelling was like back to the point of like square one, right? Before you had even gone through the first brain surgery.
Yeah.
Man.
It was back to pretty much the level that it was before.
Right. That's when you went to your ophthalmologist again. They like ran more tests, and they said that it was actually worse than that. You're even worse.
Like I remember talking to Sarah, and she's like, "Oh yeah, he's like ready to get back to work, so excited." And then the week later, Sarah's like, "He can't get out of bed." Like I was like, "Whoa, what just happened?"
Yeah.
So that we found out all that stuff.
And at that point, you were like kind of gotten back to normal.
Yeah. So that was the weird thing. Yeah, I was feeling normal for the most part. I went back to work, was trying to just catch up on everything I missed because I was down for about a month. So I was trying to catch up on life. And I had an MRI earlier this year to just kind of get a better picture of what was going on, and the surgeon confirmed like the swelling it's still there. So we found out I would need another surgery. So I had that surgery back in March of this year, and that's gone better as far as we know.
Yeah, but I mean these are not small surgeries, right? Like again, this is brain surgery both times. This isn't like we'll just do a little tweak here and there. Like this is
we've seen Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, like we're medical experts.
We don't know
obviously.
anything.
Not at all. Yeah,
But
Sarah loves Grey's Anatomy.
That's very scary. No,
Yeah.
I'm not making light of it.
As far as brain surgery goes, it's not like the craziest, most invasive, most dangerous kind of surgeries, but it's still brain surgery.
It's still brain surgery.
So it was pretty, scary just to like go through all that. But the first one I had was called an ETV, which stands for an endoscopic third ventriculostomy. It's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Basically, they went in and like poked a hole in my brain to help the fluid that was trapped, like to flow out.
Have like an alternate route.
Yep. And for some reason, they don't know why sometimes ETVs fail. They just don't work. Like the hole is still there. It's not covered up or anything, but it just doesn't drain out correctly. So then the second surgery I had was to get a shunt, a VP shunt. So it's a tube that basically drains the fluid out of my brain into my abdominal cavity.
When I hear your guys' story of what you've been going through for the last year, honestly, one of the biggest things, that age-old question of like, man, why do bad things happen to good people? And again, like define good, bad, all those things. But really, like when I think of quote unquote good people, like for those listening, the Kims are those. Like they're good people. Like, again, Sarah is like works in a nonprofit with kids. Like they are incredibly generous. They are incredibly kind people.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, something just out of the blue, like brain surgery, just boom, out of the blue that just like completely interrupts your life. That the first time going through all the frustration, I'm sure, and pain of like the first time going through it, and then having to go through that again. What has that been like, working through the frustration, the unfairness, and the pain of that situation?
Good question.
Yeah.
But like just the first thing that comes to my mind is like obviously what happened was really hard and scary, but we also know so many people who've gone through like even harder and even scarier, and I always wonder how people can walk through hard things without having like faith in Jesus. I mean, it sounds kind of like cliche to say, but like honestly, at the end of the day, that was the biggest thing that got us through it all.
Wow.
And that gave us hope. Yeah. And I thought about that a lot. I was like, I don't know how we would do this without knowing him.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it kind of all happened so fast that we were processing it in the moment. Had to process things like really quickly, and some of it like we didn't even process, I don't think, for a little while, just because like life kept going and like pushing forward, even though we just wanted to like stay in the moment. But that's probably a good and a bad thing, because you just had to just deal with it and face it. Yeah. What did you say?
I think that's it.
Ditto.
She solved all the problems, all the answers.
Yeah. It's
No,
different for you too, like having like you were the one who was really going through it.
Yeah. And I talked about this with you, the last few months, but the first surgery, it just happened so fast. From going from, finding out about my diagnosis to having surgery, it was a week. So there was just no time to really like be scared or to be frustrated or any of that. It was almost just this like, all right, like, I have these 3 meetings next week, and then I have surgery. Like it was kind of, it felt very
like had to get a
matter of fact and routine to have to just like surgery is just like the next thing we do. Like that's kind of how it felt. I definitely like, we had moments where it was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm having brain surgery in like 3 days. Like this is crazy. But for the most part, there wasn't this like, oh, like why me? Or there just like wasn't a lot of that leading up to the first one.
Yeah. I think we were more almost amazed that we found out about it. Like that was a huge God thing in itself. And I don't know if that helped make it less of like a blow, I guess. I don't know. It was just like, oh my gosh, like that's amazing that the eye doctor even like was able to see that, and that you went at the right time, I would think, for you to show like internal symptoms, but not like external stuff. And so, yeah. I think we're kind of blown away with that.
Yeah.
For the first one, at least.
Yep. So that's how the first one went. And our community was so supportive. Like we had so many friends and family, coworkers. Like there were some people like reaching out, sending like some care packages and food and all sorts of things. And it just felt like it was really comforting just to have community care for us in that way.
Yeah.
The second surgery was where that kind of frustration and all that kind of emotion came on more into it, because like it seems silly to say it out loud, and it's not logical, but I had a sense of guilt. Like I had no control over it, right? This is something that was happening with my brain. I didn't choose to have the surgery fail or have my brain produce fluid in this way. I don't know any of that. It's not in my control, yet I had this sense of like, oh, like I had all these people praying for me and caring for me. And the first surgery like happened, and I, like as far as people knew, like everything was great. And then, to come back around and to go like, oh, we have to go through all this again so soon after that first one.
Sure.
That was just, and just like all the other kind of normal emotions with like feeling like you have to go through something like that again, knowing how hard it was. Like I had to move mountains to miss a whole month of work, right? I had to mentally prepare myself for just the pain of going through surgery, and then the whole recovery process, and thinking like, oh, I just got through all that, and then now I have to go through it again, like so soon. That was much harder to deal with. It was much more frustrating. I will say, I'll be honest, I don't know if I really handled it that well. at least like leading up to the surgery, I was just trying to keep it together, just trying to convince myself like I just got to get through this, and I'll come out on the other side and everything will be fine. And I was trying not to like think about it too much, trying not to feel too much about it.
Yeah.
But afterward, like after the surgery and like everything was great, where I should have been grateful, I just felt more like angry and frustrated. It was like all that stuff that I was kind of just like bottling up, it all came out after the second surgery. So it was like, second surgery was great and it was successful, and I was getting better, but on the inside, I was that was probably the hardest time. Yeah.
And I'm like processing this right now, actually, as we're talking. So I don't know, but I don't know if this played into it too, but like we actually could have had the second surgery as the first surgery, and like we chose to try the first one,
the less invasive,
thinking that it would work and that like feeling like it was the best option. And even in the first surgery, there was another opportunity for us to have had the second surgery because there were some things that came up, and we still kind of pushed for the first one. And so I don't know, like just processing this here.
Yeah.
I don't know if that like could have played into it a little bit of like a not so much guilt, but just like if we obviously had known what we know now, which that's how everything is always, but if we had known,
if I'd done the shunt first,
then we wouldn't have had to. But then when we wonder if the first thing would have been better,
try.
So that was hard too. Just kind of knowing in hindsight, like, oh man, like we could have avoided this in a way. But obviously, everything, I would say, I don't know if that's cliche, but happens for a reason. But, God was working it either way. So,
you had mentioned how like your relationship with Jesus and having Jesus in your life, how that was a big part of you being able to work through and process some of that. Can you expound on that a little bit more of like, how did that work? How did, having a relationship with Jesus help comfort you and help you process and work through some of that?
Yeah, that's good. Honestly, like it came and went, I guess I would say. Like there were obviously moments where I held on to that stronger than others, but I think it was just this underlying knowing that God is in control of everything. And even though we didn't know what the outcome was going to be, and we didn't know that you like had this this like problem, God did, and he knew exactly when you had it, which I guess was when you were born, and exactly when we would find out about it, and exactly how the surgeries went. And so just knowing that he goes in front of us and beside us in all the ways to make a way for us, and that just gave me peace, just knowing that at least he knew what was going to happen. And I like to know all the things. I'm very much a planner. I like to experience things like first before I'm like, sure, I'll jump into that or whatever. Obviously none of that. Like I have never had any surgeries besides getting one wisdom tooth out. So there were obviously a number, like infinite unknowns. So that just gave me peace knowing that somebody knew. I just kind of rested in that, and it gave me hope that things would turn out. And I think like Hansoo is a very, I don't know if like, I don't want to say stoic. He doesn't not have feelings and emotions, but he does not like show them in like not crazy ways, but big ways like I might. And so that helped a little too, because I just kind of like fed off of him, and he was still very like calm and contemplative, I feel like, and like processing. And I tried very hard not to put my anxiety, worry feelings on him by being like, hey, like, how are you feeling about everything?
Yeah,
Like,
it's tough.
are you worried about the surgery that's coming up? Because I would just be a basket case. So that helped me too. Just kind of be like, okay, if he's not freaking out and this is happening to him, then like, surely I don't need to freak out because it's not happening to me directly.
Right.
So there were moments where I didn't know, like you said about yourself, like I didn't know if I was handling it well or the right way.
Sure.
Just not knowing what the right way to like walk through something like this with somebody
Sure,
is. And not knowing if I was processing it the right way or if I was being like your partner in the right way with this and everything. But obviously everyone processes things different. There is no right way.
Exactly.
So we made it through. So I'd say that's good. Letting you process and just trying to be the best that I could be alongside you. Yes.
You did a good job.
Aw. That's amazing.
And then Hansoo, from your side of the street, you were saying, especially after the second surgery, because there was a lot more time, not only leading up to that second surgery, but also, the recovery afterward, to kind of sit and process and be like, this is very frustrating and unfair. And I'm mad about, like, I'm angry, and very validly so, honestly. What has that been like? Like, how have you been able to navigate and work through that frustration? I mean, even I'm sure there are still components of that. I mean, I'm sure that for both of you guys, there's still the question of why swirling around in there, and
We
you
asked
probably will
that.
never know.
Yeah.
I think every single person in some point in their life has sat back, whether they're a person of faith or not, and sat back and like, why is this happening to me? Like, how have you kind of worked through that, Hansu, and processed that?
I don't know if it's just in our culture or if it's more universal around the world, but we use a lot of like war metaphors or like fighting metaphors when we talk about medical things. Like you're fighting cancer, you're battling cancer, right? Like the way that we talk about our health issues and how we're struggling through them, we use a lot of like war imagery.
That's interesting.
And this is just like something that I'm like connecting the dots right now, like as we're talking. After, like, as I talked about, like the first surgery just came up so fast, and then the second one, it just felt like it was right on the heels of the first one. And so there wasn't a whole lot of time to process everything and to just feel that, frustration and anger and fear and all of that. And so, yeah, like after that second surgery, when I was recovering, that's when there was suddenly a lot of time. And it, to use that like war analogy, it kind of felt like after the war, like there's all this destruction and devastation, and you're just like analyzing like, okay, what exactly happened? Because while you're in war, you're just desperately struggling to survive. And then at the end, suddenly everything's quiet. And
wow, yeah,
there's just all this time to look back and analyze everything and think about things maybe too much, right? And worry, like, oh, did I do the right thing? Like, how did I handle this? So it's that's how I would say it felt like after that second surgery. Like during that time of recovery, it just felt like everything was in shambles. I was grateful to like have gone through the surgeries and be alive and to be like recovering and have had a successful surgery as far as I knew. But it was, just like that space to suddenly be like, oh my gosh, like what did I just go through?
Yeah.
What did we just fight our way through? And what are we staring at for the future? Like what are we looking at right now? And I guess I didn't finish talking about this to answering your previous question, but it, up to that point, it was kind of like shutting God out. Like I was praying, I was asking for all these things. I was asking for good health and recovery, but I was also just like I was angry, right? Like, I was like, I don't know why you are letting me go through this, Lord, and I don't know like what the future holds. And I didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to admit that that's what I was feeling, but that's what I was feeling. And honestly, what brought me out of it was this opportunity to share at church. So when I first got a text, I was in like week 2 or 3 of recovering. I had been laying in bed or on the couch for the last 3 weeks. I was like, my phone was never with me. I was like never checking it. I was just like doing nothing. And I get a text asking if I'd be willing to share my story at church, and I wasn't feeling it. I was like I was kind of non-committal with my responses. I asked some questions about what they wanted, but for the most part, it's kind of like left it open-ended. Like I wasn't really saying no, but it's kind of like gave them the hint that maybe I wasn't that interested. But the person who was texting me, like, I'm so thankful that she just like kept persisting. She kept like texting, and then she set up a call with somebody else at church who I had a phone conversation with him, and that moment was like the Holy Spirit, like just reaching down and picking me up and putting me on my. It was surreal. I was I was trying not to like talk to God. I was just like avoiding things. I was avoiding my feelings, and just in that, it couldn't have been more than 10 minutes. A 10-minute conversation with a friend at church who said, "Hey, like we want you to share your story of like what you have gone through, what you're still going through, and it's not something that is neatly packaged up. Yep. It's not something like, hey, like this, I went through this, and this is the lesson I've learned, and like God is great, and hooray, and everything."
Right.
Yeah,
it's not. It's I'm going through this right now, and I'm still declaring that God is good.
Yeah, that's so powerful.
To be able to say that, and like I have a goosebumps right now. It's like talking about it. Like, he just like reframed everything in that perspective for me. And again, it's just like the Holy Spirit like speaking to me directly, and like, you have to do this.
Yeah.
So it went from me wanting to not do it. It was like my decision. Like, I don't really care. And it became God's decision. It's like this is his story to share.
Yeah.
This is his, like, my life belongs to him, and what he's doing in my life, like, I can go along for the ride, or I can, like get dragged along, and, it happens anyway. So, so really it was like that. I point to that phone conversation as the moment where it just like all turned around for me.
Wow.
I was, all right, I'm going to get back up. I'm not going to feel sorry for myself. I'm not going to try to avoid my feelings.
Right.
I'll go back to praying and talking to God and all that. And then you guys know like how it went, like sharing my story, like that was just an incredible experience. And so many people have come up to me, even now, like people will come up and, hey, like, were you the one who like, you share your story at Easter? And it's just such an incredible thing to have been able to have my story encourage people in that way.
Oh, it was so powerful. I was weeping. I was by myself because Justin was on camera.
Granted, Stephanie never cries.
I do cry. No, but it was like next level. And Justin's on the camera, and I'm like as close to the camera as I can be because I went to the second service and none of my friends were there. And so I'm just like weeping. And I look over at Justin, and he normally does not like make any eye contact when he's on camera. It's so focused. He looked at me and he went, right. I was like, yeah.
It was powerful.
So powerful. And I mean, the power is in the story, right? And I think that that's such a wonderful example of how God wants to use those moments in a full circle way, you know? And I truly believe that healing only can happen when you start sharing and you start using your story for others' good, others' good. There we go.
The good of others.
The good of others. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But I mean, and sometimes that's like 2 people. In your case, it was like 2 million people. So, I mean, that's...
Well, 2,000,002 now that you're sharing it on the podcast.
We have 2 followers. Our moms.
Right.
Just kidding. And now
actually,
your
I don't
moms.
think my mom listens.
That's right. Your mom doesn't. My mom. Oh my word. No, that's awesome. That's really amazing, Hansoo. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I hope that's an encouragement to people that like to ask some and we're going to talk about like how can people come around and support you? Because I think that's something that is always awkward because every situation is different. Everybody is different. Their level of contact is different. Their ability, you know, like can Justin and the Fight Club were like, do we all go? Do one of us bring dinner? You know, like all those questions. And so, of course, we're just going to hear your way of being experience of being supported. And we actually had another interview with a couple who adopted and went through a very challenging time. And I remember trying to support them while they walked through that. And in our podcast years later, they were like, well, you couldn't support us. Like that's just the harsh reality.
Yeah,
you did not understand.
Not in a negative way toward us. It's just
right.
It was just a different season and there's only so much
you can
that
understand.
you can do and understand
Yeah.
to support and be there and love on. So.
And so they found support in a group of people that understood. And I need to not feel like, oh, like I failed them. Like I didn't. That was the support they needed. But I think hearing from you guys in your experience, how did community come and support you? What were ways that were really helpful? What were ways that maybe you would encourage someone to rethink? You know? So what was your experience with the support side of things?
Honestly, I was just so grateful for anybody to, like anybody who texted or called. Like you guys brought us dinner. A bunch of other folks brought us, and you know, like there are just so many different instances of support in small ways and big ways, and I was just grateful for all of it. I don't think like I evaluated any of it as like, oh, like I don't really care about this, or I don't need this.
Sure.
So like I had coworkers send me gifts that like I didn't expect that. Like I had coworkers who I've never met because I work remotely, so they're in another state. Yeah. And I just started getting like Amazon packages showing up on our doorstep.
Nice.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like you know, like it was just crazy.
So sweet.
So at least for me, and I guess I don't want to speak for you, but just for us, just having people like show us that they cared, like that was the best thing that we could have had. It's because it's not like, you know, someone else could have, you know, had my surgery for me or helped
exactly
with that. So I didn't expect anything at all anyway. So it was just amazing to have people just care for us.
Yeah, it was amazing. I would say something that I didn't think that I needed or wanted, that like I ended up really appreciating more than I understood that I would, was having people come and sit in the hospital with me while Hansoo had a surgery. The first and second surgery, some people came and sat. And I mean, if you had asked me, I would have been like, no. And I think probably they did ask. And I was like, you don't have to do that. I mean, especially like people down here, you know, traveling to Atlanta or whatever. And coworkers who, I mean, I don't remember what day it was.
It was Friday.
Yeah. So they technically had off that day, but they still came and sat, and it spoke, just like volumes to me.
Wow.
That they cared, and just wanted to be there with me. And you know, you don't think about how, it's a few hours. There's only so much you can do and say in a few hours. So having people there to just kind of take your mind off things, or be there when you get a call about how the surgery is going, it just was big. And my family too, and Hansoo's family, his parents came and stayed. which was super nice. And that they got all that together in just like a week, especially for the first surgery. So we felt super loved and prayed for. We definitely did not doubt that people were behind us and praying for us, and we definitely felt that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That is. And to your credit, I'm sure there are people listening to this and they're like, how do I get that community? How do I get that kind of support? You guys support other people, I mean, on a daily basis. Like,
Absolutely.
you guys, like Justin said at the beginning, are so giving and so generous with your, not just your time, your
gifts,
treasure, your all those things, your energy. Like, you give such positive encouragement. And even to a mom who's struggling because they have a 2-year-old that won't let go of them, like, your kind smiles and your non-judgmental attitude is like so life-giving. And so I think that needs to be said, that it was easy to give back in those small ways because you give back to us and so many others
100%.
all the time. And that's just who you guys are. And so I'm so glad that people rallied around you during this. And I think that it's a testimony of good community, of a healthy church, of so many other elements that you guys have laid the foundation for a crisis and a moment of, I mean, in the grand scheme, a moment, you know, obviously it hasn't probably felt like a moment in the last 9-10 months.
Very long moment.
But in this season of trial, you know, you've set yourself up to have that support. So,
and I think that flows really well into the next question that I want to ask, and that's like, based on your guys' experience and what you've gone through, you know, do you have advice? Do you have information or, you know, anything that you would want to share to people who may be going through something? You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be brain surgery, but some kind of unexpected health issue or some kind of unexpected, just frustrating or bad situation or hard season that's happened to them. What advice would you give or share with them?
One thing that we kind of reflected on recently is that I think for the first surgery, we were way more kind of like transparent and sharing with people about what we were going through as we like walked through everything. And so it's easier for people to show up and pray for us and care for us because we shared more. And then I think when we were thinking about it, the second one just kind of came up so fast. And obviously there are a lot of feelings and hardness inside about it. And so we don't feel like we were as sharing and transparent and like willing to be cared for. And that's a weird way, but we didn't like give people the opportunity really to like know and care for us in that, because we did have some of those like, well, we already did this once. Not that like prayers run out and care runs out. I don't think we were thinking of it from that standpoint, but yeah, just I would say be open to people caring for you, and be specific too about what you need or want. Like, I had a friend who just went through something, and because I knew how important it was to have somebody with you in that, you know, she asked if I would come and sit with her and her family in the hospital, and I did. And that's not like shooting my own horn or anything, but I think like going through things also gives you a lens for which to like look at those situations in the future.
That's
and so because I had this experience with Hansoo, I was able to see where she might need something when she went through a similar situation. So hopefully, you know, next time she sees somebody going through that, she'll know how much it meant to have me and other people like standing next to her. But yeah, just be like open and willing to have people care for you. I know, like, of course, we in the beginning we were like, we don't need a like meal train. Like, you just don't feel, not that you deserve it, but you just don't. You're like, I mean, I'm here, like I can cook. It's not like a huge deal that if I have to run to the grocery store and cook, but that was such a huge blessing to us. I didn't have to do that, especially Dr. Hansoo really wasn't feeling good and I didn't want to leave him. So just don't be afraid to let people like care for you and love you, and don't feel like you're like a burden to them, because a lot of times people want to show you how much they care.
Absolutely.
And it's like almost blessing them to be able to bless you, if that like makes sense in a weird.
It absolutely is. No, you're exactly right.
On this side of it, it's not weird at all. Like
No.
our small group talked about it. They're like, oh my word. And I remember when we were talking about your second surgery, and a couple of them were like, what? We didn't know. Like, so we experienced it from this side of not knowing the second time.
That it was a
but
joy for us to be
it
able
was,
to do
and
that.
they
and
all wanted to. They're like,
Yeah.
okay, what do we do this time? You know. So I think that makes so much sense. That, and I'm not putting you guys down at all for feeling those feelings the second time at all, but I love that you can now be that voice to other people that says like, no, don't take away that joy of
Mhm.
serving and that blessing that we get from being able to minister to someone else.
Because when you're in true community, it really is a win-win. It really is. Of like, we get the joy of getting to even just interact and see you and check in and be like, hey, is everything okay? Like giving us an opportunity, but also like hopefully it benefits you guys as well to be able to be like, all right, that's one less thing we have to worry about in a season where there's a million other things that are, you know, fighting for the rent inside of our heads right now. What about for you, Hansoo, with going through that? What advice would you have?
It's still surreal for you to think about, because like I have probably been to a doctor's office like before this whole ordeal, whatever you want to call it. I had been to a doctor's office maybe like 10 times. So to go from that to suddenly like having more appointments and more tests than I've ever had, like crammed in, in a short period of time. It was definitely a very humbling experience to like remember, oh, like first of all, I'm not invincible. I'm not, I'm prone to issues like anybody else. Like my body is not perfect and I'm going to need help. Like I can't just do this on my own, and it's not in my control. So I know it sounds kind of cheesy to say like go to the doctor, like have your appointments, like do the things that you need to do. And then just to echo, address, don't ignore problems. Don't try to brush things off or say like, oh yeah, it's fine. Definitely address things head on. And then kind of echoing what Sarah said. Like I for sure had that like sense of shame and guilt. Again, it's not logical to feel that way because it's not like I had any control over what I was going through. But there was just, I don't know if that was like the enemy, like just to that, like, oh, like people have like done enough for you. Like people have their own problems. Like they shouldn't have to like take on this extra burden of carrying, or any like those kinds of lies. I would definitely do that differently if I could go back. I would like share with more people, like tell them, hey, like I'm still going through this. Like I need your help and your prayers.
Because you almost needed people more the second time almost. You're more shut.
I was more shut off second time around.
Do you think that there is an area that you can thrive in, even in a dark, seemingly tragic,
that's a good question.
hard season like you guys just went through?
Where you feel like you're just surviving. Like, can you still thrive even when you're in a season of surviving?
When we say the word thrive, there's a cultural connotation of like everything is easy and good. Like, oh, we have like a big nice house and our family is healthy and we're going on vacations and we're eating good food and like everything is like good, but it's like it's more in like framed around like comfort and luxury. Like that's what we think of when we say we're thriving. But in reality, like we know, like spiritually, that's not really what thriving is. It's not antithetical to that. It's not that it's exclusive. if we're that, then we're not actually spiritually thriving. It's that spiritually thriving is something that's different. I want to believe that, you can thrive in the hard seasons. And not only that, I think we thrive because of the hard things.
Wow.
That's good.
Like what Sarah brought up about how, when I was going through surgery and we had like coworkers and friends come and sit with Sarah like at the hospital while I was having surgery. And then that gave her that perspective like, oh, like this is really nice. And this is really comforting to have somebody. And so when her friend was going through a similar kind of thing where she was going through surgery, like Sarah thought that it would be good to like go and sit with her family. Like I see that and think, okay, like that is amazing. Like you are spiritually growing and you're thriving. We're learning empathy and we're becoming more Christ-like through the struggle that we go through. So yeah, to answer your question, I definitely think that we can thrive in the hard seasons, and in fact, we thrive because of them.
Oof.
Wow, that is so
I got
good.
goosebumps now.
That is so good.
That is good.
What does it mean to you guys to intentionally thrive in your life? What does that look like?
Yeah, to thrive is to be connected to God and to be in a process of becoming more like Christ.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way that I would think of thriving. In my external circumstances, my material circumstances, those things can go up and down. They can change. But who I am, my identity in Christ, and the person that I am becoming, like those things are, not connected to those material things. And I feel like if I can say I'm connected to God and I'm growing spiritually, then I'm thriving.
Wow.
I mean, obviously, being intentional, I feel like it's more, understandable of a concept than thrive, maybe. But not just going through the motions and living life just like minute by minute, day to day, just kind of letting life happen to you. Not like you're trying to take control of something, because we know we have very little control over it. Serve others and grow, especially like in your faith and with Christ, but also in relationships around you. I feel like doing that will only help you grow and lean more into who God's calling you to be and who he wants you to be.